Truth Triumphant by B.J. Wilkinson. Reproduction copyright Maranatha Media 2002. Scanning by Paul Nethercott. Formatting by Ann Thompson. The following is the table of contents. Chapter 1. What is the church in the wilderness? From the days of the apostles. Chapter 2. The church in the wilderness in prophecy. How her rivals in religion counterfeited the prophecies. Great prophetic time periods. The 1260-year time period. Chapter 3. The apostolic origins of the church in the wilderness. Christianity among the Jews. The beginnings of Syrian Christianity. The beginnings of Celtic Christianity. The beginnings of Greek Christianity. The beginnings of Latin Christianity. Peter's epistle to the churches. The gospel to India. Chapter 4. The silent cities of Syria. Historical and archaeological background. El-Bara and other cities. Why silent and deserted cities? A church evangelical, not papal. Chapter 5. Lucian and the church in Syria. His boyhood and youth. Insidious teachings met by Lucian. Lucian's gift of the genuine New Testament. Rejection of spurious Old Testament books. Exposure of the allegorizing theologian. Denouncing tradition above the Bible. Standing against no-law theory. Theology. Quality, not quantity. The genuine Bible. Manuscripts true and false. Relation to the law of God. Christ, our substitute and surety. The Sabbath. No union of church and state. Chapter 6. Vigilantius, leader of the Waldensians. The struggle against monasticism. Revolt against asceticism and monasticism. The forerunner of Vigilantius. Opponents of pagan practices. What caused the rupture between Vigilantius and Rome? The new organization of free churches. Chapter 7. Patrick, organizer of the churches in the wilderness in Ireland. Christianity in Ireland before Patrick. Patrick's work in Ireland. His authority, the Bible. The fictitious Patrick. War on the Celtic Church. The character of Patrick. The beliefs and teachings of Patrick. Enemies of the Celtic Church in Ireland. Brian Boru overthrows the Danish supremacy. The ruin of Patrick's church. Chapter 8. Columba and the Church in Scotland. The education of Columba. Laboring in Ireland. Journeys into Scotland. The mission center at Iona. Doctrines of the Church of Scotland. Bible manuscripts and Bible studies. The century after Columba's death. Battling against Northmen and the papacy. Queen Margaret and the Scottish Church. Problem of the Council. Scotland subsequent to the papal penetration. Chapter 9. Papas, first head of the church in Asia. Transforming heathenism without being transformed. Seleucia, headquarters of the church. Assyrian church leaders before Papas. Separation of the churches. Zoroastrianism attacks the church. Zoroaster's imitation of Bible doctrines. The sun-worshipping creed of Zoroaster. The church meets Buddha's counterfeit. The Church of the East combats Hinduism. The new revolution in Hinduism. Chapter 10. How the church was driven into the wilderness. Conversion of the Goths by Ulfilas. The 1260-year prophecy of the Little Horn. Subjugation of the Goths by the Emperor Justinian. The Church forced into the wilderness. Chapter 11. Denuth and the Church in Wales. The arrival of Christianity. Augustine in Great Britain. King Arthur and the early Welsh heroes. Second Conference on Church Doctrines. Steps in subjection. Chapter 12. Aidan and the Church in England. The character and education of Aidan. Rome's mission to the Kingdom of Kent. Aidan's missionary labors. Celtic Church training centers. Whitby as a training center. Caedmon, Finan, the East Saxons, the Church in Kent, Wessex, East Anglia, and Sussex. Coleman, the 4 centuries following Whitby, the papacy and William the Conqueror. Chapter 13. Columbanus and the Church in Europe. Missionary endeavors in France. The first 3 centers in France. The struggle with the bishops of Rome. Columbanus and Queen Brunhilda. Columbanus in exile. Death of Columbanus. Reason for the opposition of papal bishops. Luxiel, St. Gall, and Bobbio. Chapter 14. The Church in Europe after the time of Columbanus. Papal hostility to the Celtic Church on the continent. Charles Martel. Charlemagne and the Holy Roman Empire. The Albigenses and the Paulicians. The Franciscans and the Dominicans. The power of the Reformation. The end of the Holy Roman Empire. Chapter 15. Early Waldensian heroes. Waldensians date back to the Apostles. Their territory was not Roman. Early Waldensian heroes. Claude of Turin. The rise of a new controversy. Glaring papal forgeries. 11th century Waldensian heroes. Berengarius. Separation between Greek and Latin churches. The revolution in northern Italy. Gregory VII, the imperious innovator. Peter de Bruys. Henry of Lassange. Arnold of Brescia. The Noble Lacon. Peter Waldo. Chapter 16. The Church of the Waldenses. Their records destroyed. Learning of the Waldenses. A people of the Bible. Persecution of the Waldenses. Truth planted in many lands. Protestantisma, glorious fruit of the Waldensianism. Did the early Waldensians keep the Sabbath? The Waldensians, a Bible people. The Waldenses and the Reformation, a worldwide awakening to Bible prophecies. Chapter 17. Abba and the Church in Persia. Persian Christians escaped theology of Rome. Missionary expansion from Papas to Abba. Abba comes to the Catholicate. From Abba to the Muslim conquest. Rise and conquest of the Mohammedans. Chapter 18. Timothy of Baghdad, the church under the Mohammedan rule. Catholicos moved to the new capital of the Muslim Empire. The Catholicate of Timothy. The conquest of the Mongols. Conquest of Genghis Khan. Kuyuk spares Europe. The doctrines of the Christian Mongols. The Church of the East in its wide extent of missions. Chapter 20. Chapter 19. The St. Thomas Christians of India. Thomas and the Gospel in India. The entrance of Christianity into India. Christianity's early growth in India. Christianity in India during the Dark Ages. Chapter 20. The Great Struggle in India. The Jesuits capture the Council of Trent. The disastrous Synod of Diamper. Jesuit sea power destroyed by the English. Glorious revolt of the St. Thomas Christians. Chapter 21. Adam and the Church in China. Did Confucius counterfeit Daniel's religion? Christianity's early growth in China. Beliefs of early Christianity in China, from Adam to the Mongol emperors. Marcos of Peking. Chapter 22. Marcos of Peking. Early history of two young clergymen. The pastors meet the Catholics. Marco Polo and the Assyrian Christians. Rise at Tamerlane. The coming of the Jesuits to China. The corrupted Chinese inscription. Chapter 23. The Church in Japan and the Philippines. Counterfeit Christianity in the Orient. Buddhism adopts the second coming of Buddhism. The eclipse of Shintoism by a Christianized Buddhism. The Church of the East monument in Japan. The crushing of defeat of China by Japan. Japan's struggle with the Jesuits. The subjection of the Philippines. Chapter 24. The remnant church succeeds the church in the wilderness. The wilderness period ends. Important dates in Christian history. Luther and the Reformation. The background of the day of worship. The civilization of the Church of the East. Other shortcomings of the Reformation. The end of the Great Tribulation. The accomplishment of the indignation. Inquiry into the prophecies. The world's unparalleled progress after 1798. The approaching age. Bibliography.